Good evening. This is the Monday, April 15th meeting of Nominations and Appointments Committee. My name is Chris Miller. I'm counselor for District 6, and beside me is Counselor Vanessa Campos for District 1 and Mr. Wesley Butler for District 4. And tonight, we don't have any applicants to interview, although we do have three items for discussion, and we will start this evening with a review of questions that we are looking over for exit surveys for people who step off of the boards and committees. So turn the page, we can see a sampling of some of the questions. If there are any questions on the questions, if there's any additions, or if there are any that need to be removed. Just take a minute to review and then we'll start the conversation. Let me know when you're ready. Ready? Okay. So the first thing, I just want to make sure I know we talked about this, but the exit interviews will be virtual, their choice, in person or virtual, or just written.
Their choice and optional. So what's not on this yet is how the committee wants to determine how they will do an exit interview if they request one. So the very last thing would be, would you like to meet with, to discuss whatever? And then we have to decide how that happens.
So I think I thought the same thing. They submit it electronically and then say they would like us to have in person, and then we can decide based on the responses whether we should follow in person or I guess we can have option because it's not required if they need it in person.
I agree. And be easier electronically, and then it's something that we got maybe want to go further in person. Let's do that.
You know, the only concern that I had was when somebody fills out a questionnaire, it's usually fairly limited because they don't want to write a lot unless they're like very passionate about what they're writing. If it's in person, it's easier just to speak what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And so to get a more honest answer would probably be in person. And there may be some where to just have a written response, like if somebody who's been on the board for 30 years, it's pretty obvious that they just decided it's time in their life that they're stepping down. And that would be like a written exit interview. But for somebody who like had only been on for a short time, I would want to hear them in person. Just to say, was it a personal issue? Was it something that could have been addressed before you chose to leave? I don't think those things would come in a written exit interview. They may just say, you know what, I'm ready to move on, and not take the time to go into detail. And I know
they can opt out, right? Like they don't to do an exit interview
Well, that's what we're
trying to
trying to
decide.
figure out how that would work.
or
I think everyone should have the opportunity to know this is available for you. You can decline it or you can accept it. And then I think you can also give them the option of if you, and I agree with you, Chris, of having the in-person, just kind of very informal, just talk it out. And that way you kind of feel why you're removing yourself, but also give them the same option. And would you prefer an in-person or would you just rather put it submitted just because some may not want to come? And, you know,
I just think if, for some, they don't want to be bothered. And that's just the way it is, but there may be some that are willing, if they had the time, rather than take the time to write it, they would just say it. And I think we've sort of seen it with the people who have been reappointed, where, you know, if you ask them certain questions, they'll tell you, like, yes, I think there could be some improvement here, or I don't think this is working the way it should. And I think it would be the same with the exit interview too, that in person, if they were asked the question, they would give a little bit more honest, detailed answer. So however we could do that. I just have one thing about these questions. I think they're fine. The only thing is some of them seem to start off with a negative connotation
Okay,
instead of a neutral. Like,
I was thinking, and I thought this was my assumption, that the exit questions would be like 5 or less, not so many.
right,
yeah, this was just a sample of the options, things that, you know, when I was Googling around, these were the top ones that I kept seeing over and over again for you to choose from.
I know in personal can be follow-up questions, but some of them kind of go together maybe. I really like the, why did you decide to stop, even if you want to change the wording, but just kind of knowing the background and why. It could be as simple as, you know, spend my time, I want to let somebody else. I like the, was there anything that could have been done to, well, that one I was thinking about, but what advice would you give anyone? I really like that one. And would you recommend others to serve on the board? I think that gives me some insight of their board and, you know, the dynamics, in my role as city council.
I think the one, was there anything that could have been done to prevent you from leaving? That almost sounds like a negative.
Negative, okay,
Right.
yeah.
And get rid of that one.
Now, would this be an addition to your resignation?
Yes. Yes, we have to have something in writing.
Thank you.
There are times when people tell me when their terms are over, they're not going to reapply. So would it apply at that point as well?
I would say so.
I would too, because they let you know. So of the sample questions, which are the ones that you think would be the best?
I like the where your responsibility is clear. And then you understand what they expect of you.
Okay,
I really like what advice that you give a new member, because regardless of how long they've been on the board, they learn something. So what can you share with others that are coming to go into the regular members as people?
and I think the last one too is a good one.
Mhm.
Would you recommend others to serve on the board? Because that's important.
And also would show us like how much they know about people, like how, you know, what they learned, that they think that citizens will benefit from.
So, number one, and number 5, the one that I questioned. Maybe those two could be combined in like a neutral
Okay.
question. That's 4, and then one more.
I did like, did you feel you had all the necessary resources to meet the expectation? Something along the lines of, you know, with the support in place.
How
And
about something like, what were the positive takeaways from survey?
Yeah, that's kind of what did you enjoy about your service? Was it rewarding?
well, I mean, even if we pick 5, that doesn't mean they're locked in. We can only
Right. Right.
change it after we start to do this and say, you know what, this isn't quite. We're not getting what we want. Let's change it a bit, but just to have something to start out. I guess the one about did you enjoy the service?
Keep that one.
Anything else?
I think that should give us 5, if we combine the two and.
I think it's a good start. And then we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
So that's it for exit survey questions.
That's all I had.
Okay.
So I will rework those and send them again.
And then for the interview questions,
So this was a check-in with all of you, because we were at the end of last year talking about with the former committee, whether or not changes were needed to the interview questions. So this was a check-in with you've had some time now to work with the ones that we've been using, whether or not that's still the questions are still appropriate and you want to work with those.
I think for me, when I look at the questions, I sort of use them as a guide and then ad lib, because it's not like a one size fits all depending on the candidate,
Right.
especially like the difference between somebody who's been reappointed for the first time versus somebody who's been reappointed for like the 5th time
Yeah.
or whatever, like they're just gonna come from different directions.
Right.
And I think there have been times too where after the applicants have said something, I've added a question that wasn't on there because they said something that made me think of a question that specifically related to what they said, not
Right.
necessarily what was on the sheet.
And those were created several years ago for consistency with the different interviews, because if you're interviewing, multiple people for the same position, you want to kind of get the same information from all the candidates. And it was also that blurb at the top was to let you all know what the main focus of these boards is, so that you have an idea of
Right,
what
which
they're
is-
applying for. So it was meant, for a starting point with the questioning.
And again, just like we said, especially with the reappointments, a lot of times the comments they make and the information they give us sort of starts the wheels turning for additional questions because they're more familiar with the board and the task than we are. So I think everybody would say it's a learning process for us as we do the interviews with the people.
How do we advocate for the concerns that they express to us during these interviews? I wonder how, I know the one board mentioned about their codes being outdated. Certain concerns here and there that it's good to know because we weren't aware, but how do we take that information and then move forward?
That was taken into consideration only because between the interview multiples here from the Board of Trades, plus the reports to council, there were so many examples that a meeting was set up between the Board of Trades and the administration. There was one, there's supposed to be another one now too.
Yes.
And that was the one where we could only allow so many of the counselors. I think it was Melissa and me.
Oh, okay, so that's how we kind of.
Yeah, so there's a
and
work
follow.
group that's forming to
Mhm.
address some of those issues now.
And it was really good because, when you're in a room and you have sort of both sides and you're hearing both sides of the story, not just one, not only do you hear the whole story, but both sides hear it too. So, if they're saying they're not happy with something that's not coming from the administration needs to hear that too. So that was a good point about that meeting. But I think, as we said, the conversation was started, the dialogue was started, but it needed to continue. And I don't know when that second meeting is, but
I think Linda is working with the managing director on
Okay.
scheduling that now. I don't have a specific date.
So the minutes of that particular meeting, was that like, was there minutes to it or no?
I'm pretty sure,
Alice.
yeah,
I mean,
I'm pretty sure I can double check it and resend those.
Yeah, like where is it housed? Like, would it be in, forget the FTP or something like, or is it like online under special meetings?
Yeah, it wasn't public. Because, and that's why there were only two counselors.
Right,
But it was recorded. And I thought the recording was sent to the other counselors.
It could have been too.
Yeah, there's so
But
much.
but then aside from email, would it have to leave somewhere or do we have to sit there in our apps? You know what I mean?
I know they're saved in our office files, but
Okay.
I'm not sure that you would have access to all of that.
But it would be that.
I would have to check, I'm not sure where they are.
And that's because that's a special meeting, would it be,
It was a non-public,
right, but,
Or-
yeah, right, it would be named something different,
yes,
okay? So,
I'll look for that tomorrow.
Questions, concerns? Same thing. Okay. And we'll move on to item number 3, review pending applications memo.
So as I mentioned before the meeting started, there's a slight delay with the current batch of backgrounds. So there won't be interviews for the next meeting either. But as is typical, what you have there as the pending, I have received 3 additional applicants. Another one for the Planning Commission, another one for the Redevelopment Authority, and then one for the Water Authority. So they'll be in the next round of backgrounds that I start once I get the information from the current round.
When's the next meeting?
Of this committee, it would have been the first Monday of May. If we have no interviews and you're okay with the draft questions, when I email them out again, we only meet as necessary twice a month. So if you want to take that one and take a rest and not, skip that meeting that Monday, we can do that. I would imagine. I don't think I'll have any interviews ready by then.
Just as long as we don't end up with like 5 applicants, 6 applicants. That's crazy.
It does. We don't have to, there's actually a 5th Monday in April. So we'll have a little extra time. I might be able to have an interview or 2 by then, so we'll just kind of play it by ear. I'll let you know if I have anybody for that one.
Monday in May, because of Memorial Day weekend, is council meeting on Tuesday or meeting Monday?
Nope, it's on Tuesday. Yeah, when there's a holiday on Monday, we bump to Tuesday.
And the Tuesday would be what day? My
May.
birthday always falls back and forth from Memorial Day.
Give me one moment.
Probably would be a fun-
The Tuesday would be the 28th.
It's my birthday. No way. No, Shelley.
Yeah,
You
you can celebrate a different day.
No, it's a Dr. Donnelly. I'm gonna stay till now. Council, my.
You can come in on
Is
Zoom.
that another meeting? 'Cause that's even right.
Yes,
Shit,
yeah, it's the fourth Monday, so that will be a regular meeting.
so I would not do it then.
You have a virtual option.
Yeah, you do.
Not the same.
I know, if you're gonna be.
What is say about that?
Is this a biggie?
It's still a birthday. My life where I ignored it and I just read about it. Now I'm trying to cherish it. I'm trying to cherish. I'm 1 year. You know what I mean? Like there was, I'm like, oh yes, my birthday, whatever. Whatever. The council meeting.
So I, apologize for being.
Oh, yeah.
Great way to start.
With all your friends and neighbors.
Okay, I'm gonna take both of them.
Never did it.
You shouldn't.
No, I think that that's completely, you know, you wanna go away,
That's like.
you gotta take care of you, I'm voting.
This is the first time that I would, because I would go away or whatever, so I'm gonna check the agenda, see if and then figure it out, because that would be a problem. I wouldn't wanna do anything after, I would just go home and sleep like that. I'm not gonna do that. Wouldn't even enjoy, whatever.
My point, this is my life, I just prefer that it's just like go away.
Me
I
too.
don't like to acknowledge them anymore.
No.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't.
Special.
They're a double. You know, like they're bitter,
This way.
but think of it this way. There's so many people that don't make it to the age that we are, so it needs to be
It's a moment of great being
You know what I mean?
grateful.
like, I just feel about it now,
Right.
so.
Okay, so meanwhile, back to boards, authorities, and committees.
I don't have anything more
Okay.
unless there's any questions about anything specific. I don't have any other items.
So this is up to date. This is something that I know I've been asking again and again, because we've been filling a lot of these positions.
Yep. Except for the three that I said came in after the agenda was finished on Wednesday. So both of those are up to date, except for there's another planning, another redevelopment, and a water authority applicant that are not listed.
And which are the ones that are in trouble because they can't meet a quorum?
Mhm. So that they youth or no?
Youth Commission's having struggles, but it goes beyond the quorum. We just heard from the solicitor from the civil service boards that they're gonna start having problems. We have one applicant who did not specify police or fire civil service. So when that person is interviewed, you can talk to her about if she has a preference, because they both only have 3 members and they're both missing one. So it's difficult for them to get to meet. Shade Tree Commission was having issues, but you just appointed someone, so that should alleviate that.
Lori, right?
Mhm. So as of now, I'm not aware of any others.
Well, I know, I think it was Vanessa that brought it up about trying to figure out a way to market or promote to the public about openings, but is there a way that we could like put an emphasis on the boards that are suffering where they don't meet quorum to like make an added effort to do it on the city website or social media or something.
Yeah, so every first of the month, I update with the webmaster what vacancies there are on the website. And I do highlight, the ones that I'm really looking for, and then down below that is a list of just the board names and how many vacancies there are. But I do try to highlight the ones that we really do need at the top.
Do you think would it make a difference if we incorporated into the formal meeting to make an announcement of what boards have openings?
You could, there was a former counselor who used to, at everything he went to, tried to recruit. And he would announce it, at the end of every regular meeting during his council update time.
I don't think we have to like do all of them, but if we just.
Right,
did
but if you pick
Right.
a different one each time, maybe, and go down, whoever.
I mean, we could take turns.
I tried to do it in one of the meetings that, kids looks at me to speak up, like, okay, I mean, aside from their great candidate, they said, well, you know what, we still have one more vacancy, and so I mentioned it quickly, but I kind of did it so quickly that I didn't take, like Chris was saying, the time to say, here's what is, we can, those that are listening, here's what we have available, because that is our opportunity to speak when it comes to the nominations. Any one of us can speak to,
Right.
Chris can speak to the candidates, I can speak to the openings, and, Wesley can add, it shouldn't take
Good
too long. Yeah.
But in addition to the openings, just say what's involved so that people get an idea.
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of people, they
Right.
have no idea what
Also,
is
they
involved
think
with the
that
boards.
They're not meeting a requirement, like, you know, so if you do say those kinds of things, then they'll be like, well, I can do that. I always wanted to volunteer.
There's so many too.
Yeah.
It's like there's something out there for everybody. Like what interests you? Trees will have what interests you, if there's something that shouldn't, I mean, the only thing is that it has to be vacant, but there's plenty to choose from. And are we able to do a social media post in addition to the website to show?
Yes. I think I have to follow up with Noel, because I think he was working with Linda, but I'm not sure how far that project has gotten, so I will follow up with him on that.
I mean, I
could
could also post it.
And it could just be like, doesn't have to be like a fancy graphic. It could just be like a description like you guys are doing now, like, hey, our meeting is coming up on Monday. Because if it was big, I would wait to see if it could be a typed out post. That they can,
Simple.
yeah, very simple. Doesn't have to be a graphic or a flyer. It could just, here's what we have this week.
And I know for a fact that, Noel and I communicate, because there are times where I'm posting something, and yeah, he'll be like, I don't have one. So he'll call me and say, I can't download it from your post to get sorted. During the week, you can send it to me so I can post it.
It could be involved.
And that way we kind of, and then that, we can friend each other or tag each other. And then it's,
Right.
it's being posted across the board.
Because a link for the application is online. So
Right.
Mhm.
Correct.
Follow anybody, just put your information there, we'll get you, we'll get back to you, so that's another way. To help promote. I was gonna ask like this and you beat me to it, like how can we push more for these, and I keep hearing about these, like, what else do we do? We go to school, what can we do to get them?
And the other one, the citizens,
Initiative committee,
which has,
never
Yeah.
launched. It's never launched. No.
right,
One number?
Well, she's not a member because I called her and was like, I'm not gonna have you be appointed. You'd be a board of one. There's no business. You have to have 5 at least.
get things through them. It doesn't have to go through.
What happened to that commission that disintegrated?
It never launched. It never launched. It was newly created.
What was the purpose?
The purpose was to kind of be a go-between between the government and the residents. So if there were neighborhood concerns, they could bring them to the Citizens Initiative Commission. Or if there were a few citizens on the commission who thought that meeting on Thursday nights would be better, you know, it would be a way for them to communicate back and forth with
Actually-
the government,
A recreation of a old
Yes.
idea of like a ward cap.
kind of, yeah. And there was a citizens advisory board in the past that we tried to have, that imploded on itself. So we tried to take a different approach with the commission, but we never got to test it. It hasn't launched ever. So that was formed in
And maybe we can promote that, people to know about it and maybe want to.
2017.
Sure COVID didn't help either.
Yeah.
Well, you know, maybe we make a focus on the boards that are suffering from lack of a quorum. And then move on. Next one would be to see if we could get that to take off.
Okay.
All right, any other items to discuss?
I like productivity, productive, right? Solutions, answers, I love that. I don't like no answers, just problems. Yeah, like we had conversation about moving forward.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, can I have a motion to adjourn? All right. Meeting adjourned. Have a good evening.